Alrighty, going to be joined by my good friend Veiled Shot, and we are going to be talking about a little bit of hindsight here on the Season 1 leveling tier list, and then also a little bit about the Season 1 builds tier list. Now that we've gotten to level 95 plus, and we have had a chance to kind of let the Season 1 marinate a little bit, we're going to move stuff around here and get a more robust Season 1 tier list instead of just the starting version of it. So let's get into it. What's up, Veiled? How you doing today, man?
Doing pretty good. I'm excited to crack into this because there have been a few things that got a little bit better and a few things that honestly got a little bit worse. But this is the my favorite part about the game right here is looking at the builds, to be honest. So
Yeah, the best part is theory crafting and seeing what's out there and trying to figure out what's OP, what's underpowered, and all that stuff. So looking back, this is the leveling tier list that we put out before season 1 when we collaborated. So is there anything that stands out to you that we made a mistake before season 1, or do you think we got it mostly decent?
so it's kind of hard to say mistake. I think that there's been a lot of changes between like before season and now. So in terms of like, oh, we probably incorrectly rated that. I would say there's two on this list that I probably would have gone a little bit higher at that time. And one of them's Blizzard, and the other one is Double Swing Barbarian. I've been, appreciative of the Double Swing Barbarian. Not super, super high, but like maybe like a B tier. And Blizzard, I actually think is a lot better, and I think would have been like a high B, low A. And those are the two that I would say, well, probably a little bit better than we thought
For
at the time.
leveling, you're talking, right?
For leveling, yes, for that season starter type situation, like that's the one. Yeah.
Okay, I would put Bloodlance a little bit higher for sure. I think it's a pretty tanky version of the Necro that can take advantage of the blood orbs and really do some good AoE damage. I wouldn't put it above Bone Spear, obviously. Bone Spear is a little bit easier to get online, a little bit simpler to play, but you're not going to be as tanky. You're a little bit more of a glass cannon. But Bloodlance, I think, definitely belongs like high in the B tier as far as leveling, and it's a pretty solid build in general. And then I kind of agree with you on Double Swing. I'd probably move it maybe up there a little bit. And then you also talked about Blizzard. I may go like similar to Double Swing on Blizzard. What do you think about that? But we got to slide something down to F tier. We can't just we
Oh
can't
yeah.
just be all sunshine around here.
So that's just the mistakes. But then when you start considering like the new season one mechanics, you have like the barber, right? That's like one of the biggest things. But then you also actually have a lot of buffs that came in for specifically barbarian and sorcerer skills. Although I think the barbarian skills are a little bit weaker. But for leveling here, ice shards. Actually, I just realized ice shards is in B tier. Was that? I think that might have been a mistake on the list, but I think we put that up in A tier. I think that was just
No, 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 no. Remember, we put everything for Sorcerer down because Sorcerer was just a meme and like by far the worst class, and because of like the meta of the game, we slid everything down a little bit.
okay. Well, ice shards, I would definitely put A tier. I think that they did get quite a bit with that situation going on. I think that Blizzard is probably even high B tier. With the combination of the Barber, you just get so much AoE damage to absolutely nukes. I do think that the Thorns Barbarian and like the Summoner Necro probably dropped down to C tier. I think they actively got worse by comparison because they can't really take advantage of the new seasonal mechanics. And the same thing goes with Firewall is pretty bad, and Bone Spirit got a pretty heavy nerf. I would drop Bone Spirit potentially all the way down to F tier, maybe like the highest F tier though. I don't think Bone Spirit is nearly what it was before. And then all along that note, Chain Lightning got significant buffs in the patch 1.1.1 with a lot of options to increase its damage and increase its AoE potential. So that's probably a little bit higher. And then overall at the top, I think A and S tier has literally just not changed at all. Like, uh, like Bone Spear is still on top. Twisting Blades is still on top. Werewolf NATO, Chain or the Lightning Werewolf, or is it Lightning Werewolf? But the Lightning Druid, the Rapid Fire, Whirlwind, Flurry. These builds, they're just good. They're just good, and they haven't really changed in terms of position on the tier list. In fact, I think that all of these best builds got way better because they were already good, and now they could take advantage of the things that were good in season one. So I think that overall, that's kind of like an initial impressions type tier list here. There might be some exceptions or other builds that have surfaced, but that's kind of my thoughts so far.
Yeah, we're trying not to put like every single icon in the game on here. We're trying to get like the top 25 like most relevant builds. But now nothing is Incinerate bad though, right? Like we can't put Firewall or Bone Spear. Yeah, okay. Like I mean, 'cause Incinerate you have to stand still with a 5-yard radius. Like there's just nothing that's gonna ever beat that.
To be honest, there should be like a S, A, B, C, D, and or a D, F, and then there's like a Z tier. Like Incinerate should be like 3 tiers below any other build. Like it is actually actively grossly bad. Like I will not play that build at
It's
all.
one of the worst things I've seen in an RPG. Like because it like if you have to stand still with a small radius with something that costs a lot of mana, you should just absolutely nuke. But yeah, you don't. So there's really absolutely no reason to ever play it. My idea was they should have something fun with Incinerate. They should have like every second that you channel Incinerate, you spawn a Hydra or you spawn a Meteor randomly on the screen, like while you're channeling Incinerate. They could do things that would make it fun, like while you're channeling it, you have stuff like popping up all over the screen and stuff. But the way it is, it's just a meme.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't know what they're thinking in terms. They buffed so many burning things, but like it just doesn't work with Incinerate nearly as much. I do think though that the builds tier list is really representative of kind of how good a lot of the classes are, right? Like I think Druid, depending on how you situate your build, your Lightning Druid or your Werewolf NATO Druid could actually be S tier potentially. And I think that like Shred, that type of options are still really amazing. But there's Rogue, Necro, and then Druid. And then Barb and Sork are both in A tier or below. And that's where they start. And I think that's accurate. Like I would probably put the classes in a similar ranking for leveling builds. I would put Druid maybe a little bit higher than Bone Spear or the Necro in terms of how strong the class is overall. But other than that, it would go Rogue, Druid, Necro, Sorcerer, Barb, and I mean the builds kind of reflect that type of mentality here.
Yeah. So if you haven't started season 1 yet, that's going to be like the updated starter build. So then what we would do is we would adjust things for like the actual build in the season, and not a season starter. Just like as of right now, you're level 75, you're looking for something to maybe try out, so you start an alt class or something. How would we change this in relation to just overall build tier list instead of season starter?
So when we talk, when we're actually getting the build together, one thing's for sure, and that is Druid gets a lot better overall because they have so many synergies and they need a lot to work with. So I would actually put basically all 3 of those builds, even the Lightning one, in S tier. I think they're all exceptionally good. They move quickly, which is really, really important, and I would put them all into S tier. Which means S tier is going to be a pretty large tier because Druid just is so good. I think that there's a noticeable drop off for Twisting Blades and Rogue. I think that when you start to get, there's still S tier, but Twisting Blades and then Rapid Fire is down, is a little bit down into A tier. But Pulverize, actually Druid in the B tier, probably jumps up into an A tier. I do think that Hammer of the Ancients down in C tier gets quite a bit better as well, maybe like a high B tier. I think that really needs a lot of crit rate to do well. I think Bone Spirit down in F tier probably jumps up into C tier. It is a decent amount better. Outside of that, I think that some of the builds, without like messing up the tier list too much, you might be able to drop like Arclash down into C tier. Perhaps you might be able to drop like Penetrating Shot down a little bit. You could put Blizzard up into A tier. I think those types of situations can happen very easily, depending on, whether or not you're actually able to put the build together. Because the key things about the S tier builds versus the lower builds is when you get these things running, like they just one shot and move quickly. The exception is Bone Spear in that S tier because Bone Spear still moves slowly. but it still one-shots more powerfully than generally every other build, which is why it's still holding on to S tier. Um, and then if you go down, like you start to move slower, like the builds just actively move through the dungeon slower or do less damage, and you kind of need a lot more synergies. And that's why like the F tier builds, you'll notice 3 fire sorcerer builds in there. Maybe you could drop thorns and summoner necro down there as well. These builds are significantly slower. They don't benefit as much from the seasonal mechanics typically, and they just have a lot of awkwardness to getting through. And once you actually have that, like when you're doing tier 60s, tier 70s or plus, like you need these things in order to actually accomplish them quicker, and they just don't have them typically. So that's kind of where I would shape it up. When you consider endgame pushing, like when you're doing tier 100s, it might be slightly different, but I think generally speaking, even then, a lot of these builds fall into that category, except some can jump up even further.
But also they made like the tier 100 a lot more realistic now, so it's not gonna be like as crazy niche as it was. Does Twisting Blades fall off of rank 1? Like, obviously Twisting Blades as a season starter is ridiculous, but does the NATO or the Bone Spear supplant it when you're level 95 plus?
I think that when you're starting to do those really high tier ones, Twisting Blades probably jumps up from the front of S tier to the bottom of S tier. I think that's the kind of jump that you make. So I would put the Druid builds like Werewolf NATO in front of everything. I would put like typically a couple of the Druid builds at the absolute top. Like Druid is just insane because of its survivability in conjunction with its speed and damage. Bone Spear, still really, really good. But I think all of those builds are S tier for the reason that they are just good speed clearers. They have a lot of survivability, and they can clear tier 100s while also being great as starter builds. But as you jump into, as I said, tier 100s, some of the other builds get better. Like I think Blizzard Sorcerer gets a lot better. The CC potential is really useful. Penetrating Shot Rogue, I think that one gets a lot better. You have a lot of options there. You have so many options with Double Swing as well, because one of the problems with Double Swing is that you don't have as much AoE potential. But that gets shored up because you don't need as much AoE potential. I think some of those builds can get a little bit better, as I mentioned, but typically a lot of the top tier builds, they remain top tier because they're still really good.
Yeah, the tier list for like just doing the final boss or doing tier 100 would be a little bit different in terms of like I'm trying to come up with like an overall build tier list, not just like a season starter, not just a Nightmare 100, not just a group, not just a solo, just like an overall build tier list. Like I mostly agree with everything you said. I wouldn't put Twisting Blades like behind every single Druid build, but I do have 2 above it. I did move Blizzard up. It gets better the tougher the content. Does Flurry, does that hold on? Or do you put something like Blood Lance or Chain Lightning up there?
Ooh, Chain Lightning, I'm actually not 100% sure about because we've only recently seen the changes, and I think it has potential, but I don't think it is good for tier 100 pushing. I do think that Flurry gets a little bit worse as you push. I know some people swear by it. I personally have found that Flurry isn't nearly as good as even things like Rapid Fire. So in my idea of like the rogue builds, as you get higher and higher, Rapid Fire, the value of that single target damage goes way higher. So I would put Rapid Fire maybe at like a high A tier, and I'd kind of swap the positions of Flurry and Rapid Fire. Some people combine Flurry and Rapid Fire, but to me, that just makes a worse build than just Rapid Fire. I think Penetrating Shot also jumps up. In terms of just rogues, outside of that, I do think that Bloodlands can get a little bit better, and I do think that some of the other options gets a little bit better. I think that in general, the later you get in the game you get, most of the builds get stronger. It's just kind of by the nature of getting stronger, but in the F tier, they stay the F tier forever. Like they're just
Yeah, they gotta address burn, and they gotta have, like I said, things proc off of burning to synergize a little better, or be able to detonate it. Like if fireball detonated all current burning damage or something upon contact, you could like have a bunch of firewalls or lighting stuff on fire and then just blast down with fireballs and blow up all that fire damage. Like there's things they could do, but they're gonna need to adjust it to make burn damage viable and not so slow. Like the Necro summons, they can do a lot of damage, but it's mostly just because of the AI and the inconsistency, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's the key with dungeon clearing is not a one-on-one boss fight. A lot of people seem to bring this like, oh, they killed the Uber Lilith very quickly. I'm like, that's great. There's a lot of builds that can kill Uber Lilith very quickly. That's not really an accomplishment in my eyes at this point. Not to say that it's not a hard thing to do. It absolutely is. But to represent the entirety of a build by how fast they can clear Uber Lilith doesn't reflect dungeon clearing at all. Because you have so many targets. You have to actually move. Like, you actually have to move throughout the dungeons. Your movement speed matters. You have all these different situations. And with Summoner and Necro, they just go all over the place. They die sometimes because there's like one skeleton trapped by like 3 elites sometimes. I've had that situation happen to me before. It's just random things that happen with it that make it very awkward. If you had like an aspect that would like hone in on exactly where you wanted them to go always, like you can put down, I don't know, like whenever you detonate a corpse, they run to that position or something. Like you could do something cool like that, but I don't know, somewhere where you can really control them moving through with you, not just hitting monsters either.
Yeah, Summon Necro is actually really good in like the Rothma mages in Diablo 3. It was meta for like 5 years, clearing group content. You'd have like 2 Summon Necros with a bunch of mages blowing up the whole map. They're gonna have to figure out how to get that right in Diablo 4. I mostly agree with where we're at here. Is there any final changes? We've got the tiers pretty even. I like that. I like to have an actual tier list. Yeah, I would almost argue Bloodlance goes up over Rapid Fire. I do think Bloodlance is a pretty solid build. Would you be okay with Bloodlance going above Rapid Fire or Blizzard or something like that?
Oh,
Oh yeah, you hate Bloodlance. That's right.
I am not a believer in Bloodlance. What I will say is that with the new season, it did get a lot better. Like it was, in my opinion, unplayable before, and now it is decent. But to me, like when you start seeing rapid fire numbers or like Blizzard sorcerers just like destroy AoE everything, infinite CC, like these things are really good. And Bloodlance, it kind of struggles its way through there, and it gets up to the B tier. But oh man, I'm not a Bloodlance enjoyer, so
I think it is a good build. I see people raving all over the Diablo 4 community about the blood builds on the Necro. So it is good. I did try it as my main build on a level 90 plus Necro, and once you get in the right rotation and get the right aspects, it's a little bit hard to get rolling, a little bit understand the playstyle, or a little bit difficult to understand the playstyle, but it is definitely powerful. I think it's high B, low A, anything like that. Okay, cool. Well, then I think that's about all I wanted to cover in this one was get things rated. So if you don't have any disagreements, we will lock it in as final answer.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. And I will note that like it looks bad when your build is an F tier or C tier. Well, okay, F tier is just bad. Okay, just don't play F tier build. But it looks bad if your build is in like B or C tier. But these are playable builds that are decent. They're not like trash builds. Like you can't clear content with them. I have consistently cleared high tier nightmare dungeons on B tier plus builds very easily, right? It's not super difficult. The difference though is that like instead of doing it in like 3 minutes, I'm doing it in like 2 minutes 30. Like that's the difference we're talking about. Like we're talking, min maxing. So if you find your favorite build in B or C tier, like don't worry about it. Just enjoy, have fun. I mean, all these builds are pretty solid, and they wouldn't be a build if they weren't solid. They would just be
we're content creators, so we have to talk about this stuff and rate things. But I mean, there's no leaderboards or anything. So yeah, if you like playing the Summon Necro, play the summon necro and have fun with it. Like that's the whole point of the game, is we're all kind of trying to learn Diablo 4 until we start getting the the expansion packs and the leaderboards and everything crazy, and then we can really sink our teeth into the meta. But yeah, I guess in general, on the way out, how you feeling right now? I know we were probably gonna do a collab within the next week or so, but just you feeling good about Diablo 4 season 1? I haven't talked to like a different creator other than me to see where other people's heads are at.
Yeah, I would say that I've enjoyed season 1. I think that I don't know how much you've played since like literally a couple days ago, but there's been a lot of density changes. So like, previously, and you'll love this, and I'm sure people in the comment section love this, but I can get like 24 million XP solo beforehand, which is like very like I'm try harding. I got the right sigil, 24 million XP an hour. Now I can get like 29 million XP an hour because they buffed the density, so all the things are way higher XP, like a 30% increased XP rate, which is really, really cool across the board. And I've enjoyed that a lot. So I think they've actually done some really good things in this last patch. The only thing I didn't like was that they omitted things, from the patch itself. But I think with that, the game enjoyability has gone up. And if they keep doing that, then yeah, season 1 I think will be much better, and it'll have like almost like a, I guess you could say, bad taste at the beginning, but it'll finish off on a really good note, and it'll lead into season 2 really nicely. So I hope they just announced a new patch coming, like today or sometime. But if they keep doing that, I'm gonna feel pretty good about it. But if they don't, then I don't know. I think that there is a little bit of concern with like repetitive content, although that's like an ARPG problem. There's like a little bit of quality of life missing. Like all these things are still true, but they're in the right direction, I think, at this point. I say that lightly.
Yeah. Okay. We're mostly on the same page. I'm a little disappointed by season 1 so far, but I understand it's the first season. I think maybe the game came out a few months before it was ready, but obviously I understand how the real world works, and when you spend $100 million to develop a game, you're gonna want to release it as soon as possible to not be sitting on that sunk cost. But I do wish, because I saw it with like games like Age of Empires 4 as well, where it released about 6 months early, and then after 6 months, it was a really, really good game. And I'm hoping I'll see that with Diablo 4. Is in another 3 or 4 months, season 2, season 3, we'll see like some more endgame mechanics, a little bit more robust balance, and some more exciting stuff going on. So I'd give season 1 maybe a 6 out of 10 or so far. What would you give it? It sounds like about a 7, 7.5.
No, I maybe I just speak more positively or something. Maybe I got the tone going in my favor, but I would probably put it at like a 6.5 out of 10. I would say like my enjoyment has noticeably gone down from season, I call it like season 0, but the preseason. Like I put the game at like a 7.5 out of 10, and I think that they actually nerfed some things that I enjoyed. Like actively made my game less fun, and they've actually reduced build versatility because of the season 1 mechanics, which is again something that has made the game less fun for me. And even the stash is a bigger problem now because of all the hearts. So like the things that were bothering me are bigger problems than they were before. So I think that's kind of funny.
I know, that's brutal. They're like, we'll give you a stash tab, but we're gonna have the seasonal mechanic be 2 stash tabs worth of stuff you gotta keep. So it's just brutal. That the damn stash problems. Yeah, that's just awful.
So that's kind of where I'm at. But overall, I mean, if I were to rate a lot of games nowadays, I would probably put them at like a 5 or 6 out of 10. So I think Diablo 4 is definitely above the cut. So that's where I'd keep it. But
except for PoE 2, Veiled's at like an 11 out of 10 on the PoE 2 scale right now.
I'll be honest, I'm like at an 8 out of 10 right now. I've seen the game. It looks fun. I'm definitely going to try it out. But I mean, we're a year away from that. So like, I mean, what is Diablo 4 going to be by then? I mean, we got a lot of time.
A year? Veiled's living in La La Land. You're 2 years away from PoE 2, my friend.
Well, 2 years to at least try it. I just want to try it, Maybe the beta, because like
it may be a year and a half. You can try it, maybe.
I mean, let's be honest, guys. If you play the Diablo 4 beta, you kind of knew what you were playing. Like you had the experience. Like you're gonna kill monsters, but just with a more developed build. If I compared my experience to them, I knew I was gonna enjoy it or not by that point. Like I already knew. So I feel like PoE 2 will be a similar experience, but we'll see. We'll see.
All right, well, I'm gonna link to Veiled's channel down below. He's crushing it as always with the daily content, and I appreciate you stopping by and taking the time to hang out with me and talk Diablo 4 builds tier list. Let us know down below where you agree and disagree and all of that good stuff. So yeah, Veil, anything you wanted to say on the way out?
Yeah, just don't play Incinerate, guys. Or Fire Sorcerers, just don't play it. It's just bad. I don't know.
Rip Fire Sork, rip Fire Sork. All right, take it easy, Veil. Thanks, man.